Welcome to Deal Nation, where we tap into Launch Control's nationwide network to find out what's bringing in deals and how we can all work together to build generational wealth. This is going to be a fun one. Today, we're joined by Clifford, the Cowboy Closer. He's gonna tell us how to get started, things to watch out for, and just some really great advice and mentorship for anybody getting involved in real estate investment. So, Clifford, welcome to the show.
Wooodoggie, what is going on, brother?
Oh, I was so looking forward to that. Yes.
Yes, sir. I will tell everybody, country is contagious. All right, so you'll be at home later on, and something will go on, and you'll just say "woo doggy," and you're like,
Yep.
that Clifford, man, that Clifford." But no,
Country is Contagious is going to be the name of your autobiography one of these days.
oh, that's perfect. Yeah, for sure. It's an honor and a blessing and a privilege to be here and spend this time with you and your community. And I'm definitely stoked to be here. So prayerfully I can add a little value.
No, absolutely. You've got a very unique voice. You've got great advice. So I think it'll be a really good thing to get, exposure to our whole Deal Nation audience, have them listen in. So why don't we just start by telling them a little bit about, who you are and how you brought the country to REI.
Yes, sir. How far back down this rabbit hole we want to go? Let's see. So number one, I'll start by saying I'm not all hat and no cattle. All right, so don't let that fool you. We actually do show steers. So, but no, I got started in REI. I think about 5 years ago, actually, a little over 5 years ago. I was a truck driver when I got started doing real estate investing, and just kind of hit the ground running. I remember that one day I was driving in West Texas, and if you've ever been out west, there's like nothing out there but oil fields. Like it's just ugly country. But but one day I was listening to a podcast, and it still blows my mind because I really wasn't into self development during that time. There was just no other radio stations on, and there was a gentleman talking about wholesaling real estate, and I was like glued to it. And he was talking about how much money he was making doing wholesaling real estate and all of this stuff. And the guy was out in New York. I need to look him up and reach out to him. But anywho, that just took me down this crazy rabbit hole of YouTube University. And I was just hooked. And so that one podcast actually led me to getting my very first coaching and mentoring from some local investors here in Dallas, Texas, where I'm located, and it's been history.
So, tangent question: as you're driving around West Texas, before you stumbled on that podcast, what was your soundtrack? What were you listening to?
Oh, some of everything. Like my wife laughs at me because my soundtrack is bipolar. Like I'll have country mixed with rap, mixed with
Yeah,
pop, mixed with jazz. Like I'm a music guy. I just love
yeah.
a variety of different music. It's so weird. It really is. So my Spotify account just has all different types of playlists.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, me too. I think everybody's pretty diverse right now, but I just had this image in my head of you like, pulling into towns in your truck, man, like, have truck, will wholesale. So just kind of curious, like,
Yo,
how'd
for
you
sure.
go from being that, like, driving your routes, hearing that podcast to actually getting involved in running a deal?
So it was actually insane. So because when I ended up getting connected with my first coaching, and they kind of gave me some guidance there on marketing and cold calling and that stuff. And so at the time, I actually didn't have money for a marketing budget. And so I would literally print off the pre foreclosure list, and I would be literally hand dialing numbers all day, every day. Because number disclaimer, I do not recommend this, y'all. I was already sitting and driving. And so I'm like, I might as well be utilizing this time because I'm driving for 11 hours a day. So I'm literally calling people 10, 11 hours a day, every single day. And I'm normally out for weeks at a time when I was truck driving over the road. And so this gave me an advantage because number one, most people aren't going to actually sit and call for 10 to 11 hours a day. Most people aren't going to do it for 7 days a week, which I did because I was already out and away from home. So why not? And I got pictures, I need to find them, of me filling out bandit signs when I would stop and actually get my truck unloaded. So I would be there filling out the bandit signs while they were unloading the trucks. So whenever I did get home, I could go and put out 300 plus bandit signs while I was home.
Yeah. No, I love that. I feel like this whole thing could have been like a killer TikTok channel of you just cold calling people from inside the truck and filling out
Yeah.
your bandit signs while they're unloading everything. You did the soundtrack, the
Oh, for sure.
bipolar soundtrack playing in the background,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I no, it was a lot of that. But just by me doing that allowed me to gain success very quickly in getting deals under contract and getting proof of concept. In fact, I ended up quitting my job within 3 months of getting started. Um,
Whoa.
like it was insane because all I needed was my first deal to close because I just needed proof of concept. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it wasn't a struggle, like it wasn't all peaches and cream, but no, when I had proof of concept that I could actually get paid by serving other people and helping other people, like, oh, absolutely, I'm quitting truck driving. And I hated it too. So I didn't need too many reasons to quit truck driving. Like, I mean, I hated it. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I didn't like
Yeah.
it.
With those lists that you were calling, were you focused on the Dallas Fort Worth area or were you, yeah. So how did that,
Mostly,
because this is, oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say mostly Dallas and Fort Worth, and then Houston too.
Okay. So,
Hmm.
I mean, this is the question I'm sure you get a lot with people coming in is, there's a comfort level for people in being able to, call in a home that's a few blocks away or just across town where they can go and they can really get just a visual of, okay, I can see what the house looks like. I can see that there's some damage on the roof. I can get a visual confirmation that what the seller is telling me is
Hmm.
accurate beyond whatever you can get off Google Maps, right? But
Yeah.
for you, you might have been 2 weeks away on the road. So
Hmm.
how did you navigate that even though you were in your home market, essentially doing this remotely?
For sure. So what I would actually do, a lot of those appointments, I would schedule them when I came home at first, as
Uh,
much as I possibly could. And this is going to sound hilarious, but literally what I would do, I would guesstimate. I would guesstimate. Like I genuinely did not know at the time early on how to calculate repairs good. And I came to find that most sellers are honest about the condition of their property. Like if the back half of the house is falling apart, they'll probably tell you, right? Now, they will underestimate how much it costs to actually fix that. They'll say things like, oh, for 10 grand, you can update this entire house, right? And we know that's not the case, but I would just say, well, a kitchen should cost me about 10 grand, maybe 5K for that. And I would just add it up accordingly and make my offer and be okay with messing up. Like just being okay with messing up. Now I know that's a lot of the audience may not want to hear that, but I'll say I'll say this. Repairs, in my opinion, are extremely subjective. The way that you rehab a house is going to be completely different from the way that I rehab it. The way that your exit strategy, whether it's a fix and flip or a rental or something creative, is going to be completely different. The rehab, right? So you don't have to really have 100% spot on accurate comps. And it's kind of impossible to do just because it's so subjective.
So with those first few deals that you were you doing those wholesale or were you actually rehabbing and flipping them?
No, they were all wholesales.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
did do some flips, but that's when I started bringing in partners to do the
Yeah.
flips. And then I kind of grew into my flips as well. So they were like basic flips, like paint, carpet, flooring. I think, what people call hotels.
Wholesale. Yeah.
Yeah. Just keeping it simple that way.
So as you were, doing some guesstimation, quickly putting together deals, in those early stages, 4 or 5 years ago, um, what were a couple things that surprised you? Things that you didn't, you had to learn more about, or you had to kind of go down a rabbit hole to find out more about that you weren't expecting. No.
Um, I think now, I think conversations or communication was the biggest thing. And I think that honestly, a lot of the influencer and coaches and gurus and things of that nature, I don't think that we do a good enough job sometimes focusing on communication and how to talk to people and how to have quality conversations. Because I'm sure you can go out there and spend 5, 10, $15,000 a month in marketing, but if you have no idea how to have just a genuine quality conversation with your sellers, you're going to blow through a lot of money, a lot of money very quickly. And so, one thing that I was learning was I was very intentional about learning how to communicate better and more effective because I sucked at it. I sucked at it a lot. In fact, when I was starting to call sellers, my goal actually wasn't to get a deal. Like I wanted a deal, yes, but I viewed it as okay, I'm going to call all these sellers so that way I can practice this strategy. Like I do a lot of Chris Voss training and books and a lot of his stuff. I'm a big fan of him. And I highly recommend it even for your audience to read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. But I would practice his strategies and his techniques. And so just by me focusing on working on that side of things actually helped me get the deals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no harm in having a conversation that you're able to just practice these things, right? Especially because you had a job, you were even if it wasn't your favorite job, you had
Hmm.
a job, so you had income coming in. So, you weren't dependent on that homeowner saying yes to a deal or for you being able to get that deal, but to be able to do some the marketing A/B testing, right? Like see what hits, see what doesn't, focus on the thing that does, right? Like to be able to
Exactly.
get that understanding of getting essentially seller profiles, so you know who you're talking to and what they may respond to, or what their anticipated issues might be, motivation factors, all of that. Like just to get some dry run practice at that is really valuable, right? Because
Yeah.
you know you don't need how many get a list of however many people. How many people would you say were on that first list? 5,000, 10,000, something like that?
Yeah, I would be something like that. Like it was something crazy. I would say probably closer to five.
All right. So yeah, so 5,000 names, but you needed 3 months to quit your job, right? Because you
Yeah,
only needed a deal or two. So getting a
exactly.
little practice with that 5,000, logical, makes sense.
100%. And that was always my approach. And I think especially if there's somebody new that's getting started, that's going into this, if you spend more time focusing on that side of things at the very beginning, before we start leveraging, I mean, you definitely want to use marketing and marketing budgets and platforms like Launch Control 100%, but know how to talk to people. Like, know how to talk to people. It's okay to spend a month there honing these skills in before we start dumping, you know, thousands of dollars in marketing or whatever that number may be.
So in those early conversations where you're figuring out what to say, What did you learn to listen for? What were people saying to you that you were able to use in a positive way to help them in those conversations?
I think I paid attention to their why they needed to sell. Most importantly was the biggest thing. And so there was four things that I wanted to get out of every single conversation with the seller. Why being the number one? If I call you and say, "Hey, Michael, are you interested in selling your property?" You tell me, "What's your offer?" Right? Bills are paid. You're rocking and rolling. You got more money than you know what to do with. Like everything is amazing. If I come in here and I offer you 70% on your house, you are going to be insulted. You're going to be insulted. You're going to hang up and you're not going to answer my phone call again, right? But if a seller told me, "Well, I just got laid off and this is kind of what's going on, so I'm considering, do I need to sell, or me and my wife are splitting up," whatever it may be. If there was any level of motivation there, then I paid attention to that, and I'm like, okay, these are the people that I want to spend majority of my time with, to see if I can add value there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So through those, hundreds, thousands of calls, you start to gain some insight into how you want to converse with people and how you want to help people building up your own real estate career. When did the cowboy come to fruition? Like when did you decide to get into helping others learn how to do this?
Um, it was one of those things that I kind of grew into naturally. That um, I think I have a gift for it. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's something that I just kind of grew into. So the network I mentioned, I started working with some coaches, and so everybody around in his network that had signed up was calling me like, "Hey, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Like, what's going on?" And so I literally used to have what I call marketing madness. So I would have my living room filled up with people and network members where we're here at my dining room table and making calls, sending out text messages, like doing actual live stuff and showing people what I was doing. And it ended up getting so big to where my wife was like, "Okay, all these folks ain't gonna be coming over my house." And
Yeah.
so the network that we were a part of, like, we went to his office and then he started renting out these conference rooms for us, so that we could do this once a month or whatever it may be. And then it just kind of grew, like it just grew so organically. And it was all just because I was doing the work and doing the thing. And then everybody that was just wanting to see what I was doing and how I was doing it.
Yeah, that hands-on kind of training can be really impactful. We'll do it. We'll do that at Launch Control, and we'll work with people and do a live batch send. And then by doing the live batch send, start to work in some of those leads and show, which ones we would, disposition as or put on to quick replies, which ones that we would suggest that we roll to a call as quickly as possible. It's all kind of sales funnel process stuff. But when you can see it happening in real time and see how quickly those leads come in and how quickly you can pivot some of those to discovery call,
Mhm.
it hits differently
It
than
does.
when you're just watching a YouTube video, or I'm telling you over a phone call. But to actually see it happening live and seeing the homeowners respond, that 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 gets people excited, and understandably so.
Yeah, it gets them fired up. And then it shows them like, "Oh, this is doable. Like I can
Yeah.
100% do this. Like this is all Clifford's doing." And I tell everybody, like, there's absolutely nothing special about me in any form or fashion. Like I've put my boot in my mouth so many times, like I can still taste the leather. Like it's insane. And so I think when people just get to see, to your point, that real time interaction, it just hits different for them.
Yeah, but I think like to give your, give yourself a pat on the back a bit, because one of the kind of repeat themes here
Mhm.
on Deal Nation is that when you're talking to sellers, you have to have empathy. You have to
Yes.
listen and you have to solve for their problems. If you go in deal hunting and you go in talking numbers straight off the bat, if you go in any way combative, like, this is what I can give you, take it or leave it, it tends to not go well, right? Whereas if
Yeah.
you could, what you said, like if you can really listen to their why they want to sell, and you can provide really fair and trusted advice, you tend to
Mhm.
do well. And so, you, as someone who's a listener, as someone who is genuinely interested in their why, I think that's obviously going to be reflected in the conversations you have. So
Understand.
having the oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I had to write that down. Deal honey. I love that. Like, don't you hit the nail on the head. Like, absolutely, don't go in there deal hunting. I believe that what we're doing is we're building generational wealth by serving other people, right? A lot of the families that we are helping are in a very tough season in their life. They're maybe going through a divorce, maybe they're going through foreclosure, maybe they're going through divorce because of the foreclosure, right? They inherited a house because they just lost a loved one. So they need somebody to come in there and pray with them, not pray on them. Like, and when you take that approach of how can I serve you, how can I help you through this season in your life, and we can help you move on, it's actually going to relieve you of you needing to be some type of grand closer or some grandmaster closer. I think that's what has served me very well, because it's okay if I put my boot in my mouth. If I know that I'm genuinely just here to help you, if we're a good fit to work together, great. If not, great too. But I've never heard it that way. Don't go in there deal hunting. Like, that's perfect. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah, because I think what happens a lot of times, like even if someone's really good at sales in another industry, they're coming in from another business, like, you're selling in most cases business to business, right?
Yeah.
Like if I come in and I'm hard selling launch control to an investor and saying, you need to get, in order to scale your business, you're going to need a certain amount of leads coming in. I can help you do that.
Mhm.
Whatever my pitch is, that wouldn't be my pitch, by the way. But
Yeah.
in
Yes,
whatever
sir.
my pitch is, it's still business to business, right?
Agree.
Like if you say no to me, it's not it my I'm not in a dire situation. Neither are you.
Mhm.
We are two businesses talking to each other about potential solutions. So
Exactly.
when you come into a situation where it's not business to business, where you're talking to someone who is in, I think you use the expression, a bad season in their life, right?
Yeah.
When someone's in a bad season of their life, you have to be really cognizant of that, because if you're not, and you try to go in all B2B like ROI about it, then they're you're ignoring the human factor. I think I like the way you said it. You said it, you need to pray with them, not pray on them. Right.
Yeah.
So it's that 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 that's a very poignant way of saying, treat them like human beings and really listen to who they are, because that's what's going to get them to trust you. And I think another thing that I think you can agree with this, because you said you had all those people in your living room, right? And
Uh-huh.
your wife was like, get these people out of my living room.
Yeah.
Every one of those people was interested in the same list, right?
Yeah.
Because they're all in that Dallas Fort Worth area. You got all
Yeah.
these people around Clifford the Cowboy the Closer's table aiming to call the same people. So
Hmm.
from that person's perspective, they're not imagining a round table of helpful providers. To them, those are 8 separate phone calls, all from 8 separate people who wanted to give them 70% for their house. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you become the one that doesn't that really stands out as being someone that they can trust, someone that they can help? And there's an art to that.
Yeah. I think it's being genuine, being 100% genuine in who you are. Like, I don't say building generational wealth by serving other people because it sounds good. That's my personal business motto and my personal life motto. That's on my wall. Like I believe that God put me on this earth to be of service, and so I think that I keep that on the forefront of what I do, and people can tell. I like to believe that people can tell that it's coming from a genuine place, um, and I think that's the separator, or just having, you know, tactical empathy there and learning how to listen, how to be an active listener. People can tell when somebody's just deal hunting or they're really there to serve. I think that's what's going to separate you from everybody else, alongside volume, consistency, and follow up. I will throw
Yeah.
that out there for your audience. Um, yes, I can have those things and feel like I want to serve, and I do. But if I don't have volume, if I don't have consistency, and I don't have follow up, that's not gonna help me just because people say, "Oh, Clifford's nice," right? They're not throwing
Yeah.
deals at me, right? I have to have those things, and I'll even say
Oh,
for the
yeah.
audience,
Sorry.
they
Sorry. The volume, consistency, and follow up. Right.
yeah.
So yeah, I do want to shout about that. Go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just going to say, I hope that's a good reminder for, maybe somebody getting started on the call that's listening. Like, don't be mad if you don't get your deal and you've called 20 people. Like, I guarantee you, if you haven't gotten your first deal, it's because there's a break in one of those chains: volume, consistency, and follow up. And you're a marketing expert. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. Let's dive into that. But I do have one question before we do. Going back to the way of just having empathy in the calls and praying with, not praying on. Can it be taught? Because for you, someone like you, it's inborn. You've got it, right?
Mhm.
But is that something that you're able to teach people if they're coming in to B2B heavy or to deal hunting heavy? Can you teach them that?
Um, I think so. I think that I think you can learn the tactics to where you have these things. Like, some people have a heart to serve, some people don't. I don't think that that makes one person better than the other, right? But you can still acquire the same skills and talking points and things that I hit on, right? You can still develop those skills, but that don't mean that, you know like, I don't need to go feed the homeless every month or whatever it may do. Like, I don't have the heart or the desire to do that. If somebody feels that way, like, that doesn't make them any less of a person, or right. Like, so I to your question, and I hope I'm making sense here, but I think so.
Yeah, and what I mean is, if someone has too much of a very like straightforward approach, they're not listening well enough. Is it something that you're able to calibrate and kind of get them more focused on cues of what to listen for with homeowners or sellers, cues of like when to let the seller talk a little bit more about their why, when to push a little bit with the deal? Like, are those all things that you're able to, you think with some coaching, people can really get the kind of gift of listening and responding?
I think they can temporarily. I think they can temporarily. I think if somebody is set a certain way, um, they're always going to kind of go back to that baseline for the most part, right? But I can turn it off and turn it off when I need to. Like, I'm not very assertive and direct, blunt to the point, but I can be when I need to. In fact, it's so funny. Um, I'm borderline a people pleaser. Like, that's something that I have to work on. Like, one of my coaches told me, Clifford, you better toughen up, or you're not going to make it. So I have learned how to toughen up when I need to, and know when to turn that on and when I turn it off. So I think so.
Yeah. All right. So volume, consistency, follow up. Love that.
Yes.
When you say volume, what do you mean? What kind of volume we're talking about?
Um, in my experience with like text messaging, for example, I would have to send out thousands of text messages before I got a closed deal, money in the bank, right? Even the same thing with cold calling. I mean, we're calling thousands of people before we get a closed deal, money in the bank, right? And so there's a certain level of volume that it takes, in my opinion, um, to get deals not just closed, but get deals closed consistently. Um, and a lot of people will call 50 people, 40 people, and say, "Oh, no, this doesn't work. All 40 of those people told me no, don't call me again." And so that must only work for Clifford, or that must only work for Michael. Like, no, it works for everybody. Just keep going. Keep going. So that's what I mean when I say volume.
Yeah, the line I tend to draw with is volume is only necessary in order to get a level of engagement that you can deal with at the size you are with your
Mhm.
company. So if you're a solo investor and you get, say, I don't know, 50 homeowners to engage over the course of a week or even like a 2 week period, that's about all you can take, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's a lot.
that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you just need enough volume to start those conversations, which is the purpose of marketing, right? Like the idea of launch control isn't to send out 10,000 messages. It's to
Mm-hmm.
start 50 conversations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because with those 50 conversations, that's where the magic happens. That's where you're able to find the deals. A cold call where nobody answers, that's a tree falling in the forest, right? Like doesn't
Exactly.
impact me. Whereas if they answer and they say no, we had another guest on recently, and he said very emphatically, it is their job to say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're calling a distressed property, you're a phone number they don't recognize, whether it's via text or a cold call. It's a piece of mail offering to buy their home. Of course, they're going to say no, right?
Exactly.
Unless they're in a very, very like last minute desperation situation. Of course, they're going to say no. So
100%.
how do you then pivot that, right? Which is where obviously consistency and follow up comes in, right? So for you, whether a lead is generated through launch control, you send out 1,000 text messages, you get a couple hundred responses. Of those couple hundred responses, you get maybe say 30 plus that have the potential to go to a discovery call.
Mm-hmm.
That's where consistency and volume kicks in, right? Direct
Yeah.
mail, you're going to get people calling you. PPC, you can get people calling you. With these channels flowing in, how do you kind of navigate once you have engagement, the consistency and follow up?
So for me, the consistency part too is I want to start those conversations, but as leads are kind of being trickled down or they go through the pipeline, I want to also be making sure that I'm starting 50 new conversations there. And I kind of even want to throw out there, like you hit on it, y'all. In my opinion, text messaging should be used to start a conversation, to get them on the phone. I don't try to close them over text messages. I want to move them to that discovery call and say, hey, if they show any interest on that text that they want to hear an offer, my next 10 messages are perfect. When's the best time I can give you a call? Like that is the text and text and text after that, because I want to get them on the phone ASAP. I see a lot of new investors who try to close and have a full-blown conversation through text messaging. Well, let me ask you, have you ever text maybe your spouse or a family member and you said it or meant it one way, but they took it a completely different way? Like, text messages get taken out of context all the time. All the time. So we want to always hop on that discovery call very quickly. But depending on their why, that level of motivation will help me determine how consistent uh, or how much follow-up I'm doing with that person on a regular basis there. And
Yeah, I
another
mean, oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say another thing too, and this is just for me. I know there's millions of gurus out there that may differ, but I rarely have a one call close. Like I rarely have a one call close, y'all. Like where I'm gonna call Michael on the very first call and get him under contract. We're probably gonna talk 2 or 3, maybe even 4 times or more before I actually have a signed contract and agreement to move forward. So that follow up is crucial for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to keep in mind that at the center of this, not only is that I think for the investor, it might be a wholesaling deal and an assignment fee, deal
Hmm.
hunting, right? But for the person you're speaking to, is their home, and it's a
Exactly.
home that they're not going to get. Let's be honest, they're not going to get like equivalent value for, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't be in this distressed market if they were. But I think is a weird analogy, but it's one I often think of when people talk about closing deals via text, right? Because I
Huh?
agree with you. With the exception of maybe like some low end mobile homes and like super cheap land, I don't think anything really gets closed via text. It's you're starting the
Exactly.
conversation and giving yourself the ability to establish trust. But I remember years ago I was moving and I had this bicycle, like a beach cruiser that I loved. And I tried
Uh-huh.
to sell it at a garage sale and somebody came up and they offered me something ridiculous, like $20 for it. And I
Uh-huh.
was so mad that this bicycle that I really loved and I had all these great memories with, that somebody just tried to lowball me 20 bucks. I just gave it away. I didn't even sell it to the person. I could have made 20 bucks off of it, but I was insulted by that. And I ended up just giving it to like a kid in the neighborhood because I thought he'd enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
So when you come in and you basically offer somebody like the equivalent of 20 bucks, you're like, can we get this deal done? They've never met you. There's no name attached to it. It's just a phone number you're texting from. Like, it's not a bicycle, and it doesn't work when it is a bicycle. Trust me. Like it's a
Exactly.
home, So yeah, I 100% agree with you. Definitely multiple touch points, and with that in mind, like one of the things we really tell people, one of the great benefits of a text is you're opening up a channel of communication. If I
Hmm.
text you and I talk about your home, it's like, Clifford, let's talk about, I buy properties in the area. I'd love to see if we can work out something that would benefit you. And you're like, sure, let's have a call about it, right? If I don't
Hmm.
close on that call and I have to call and call again and hope to get you back on the line, it's diminishing returns. It's less and less
Yeah,
likely that I'm going to be able to do so. Whereas
for sure.
oftentimes, just a quick retext of, hey, just tried to call you back, wanted to pick up our conversation, that's often enough to reignite the conversation. And so
Exactly.
having that open channel and keeping that channel open is really powerful for that consistency and follow up side of things that you mentioned.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think honestly, for anybody getting started in this industry, should be leveraging a platform like Launch Control. Everybody should. Um, just because now in this generation, people will actually respond to a text before they answer a phone call that they do not recognize or a number that they do not recognize, right? And there's just so much spamming going on where when you call, it gets flagged as spam, right? Versus you can send a text and say, hey, this is Clifford. I'm just reaching out about your property on Main Street. And it starts the conversation, it gets it engaged, and then you can schedule the call. Like, yeah, every single person getting started in this industry should be leveraging a platform like Launchpad. Absolutely, you
Yeah.
should be.
And not thinking of it just as outbound marketing, but thinking of it as like a foundational tool for building up your business. And so if you're gonna have a business, like you need to have an LLC, you need to have an EIN number, you need to have an email address, you need to have a website, you need to have a phone number, and you need to have the ability to text someone, right?
Exactly.
So because it's like you need to have those different if you can call them, you can text them, you can email them, you will be able to get them back. right?
Mhm.
If you only have one of those, your chances are diminished, right? So it's just business building and systems.
Yeah. And I say that people respond to different marketing strategies differently. Um, where me, on the other hand, I'll answer every single phone call I get. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
My wife, if she does not recognize the number, she is not answering the phone call, right? But she'll respond to a text, right? So it's like you said, now you have multiple touch points, multiple options there. Um, and I share this analogy with people, especially getting started. Like, y'all are starting a business. Now you can grow that business however you want to grow it, however large or small you want to keep it. That's entirely up to you. But if you were starting up a restaurant, you would need cooks, you would need tables, you would need silverware, you would need groceries, right? You would need all of these things to run a successful restaurant. Well, the same thing applies here in real estate. If you are wanting to start a real estate wholesaling company or investment company, right? Like you said, there's things that you need. There's websites, there's emails, there's platforms. So just think of it that way.
So you're not helping people from around the dining room table anymore, right?
No.
So so how could people work with you these days? Like how are you helping people? What areas of the process are you helping them improve in? Just kind of give people a little rundown about how you're working with investors nowadays.
So in a few different ways, I definitely started my YouTube channel, and that's growing. So I'm trying to put a lot of content out there. So y'all go like and subscribe. That's Clifford, the Cowboy Closer. Um, but I do monthly master classes where it's a deep dive, 3-day interactive training where we talk about wholesaling. I go over actual deals that I've done, actual deals that I'm closing, fix and flips, and how I buy rental properties. And everything is case studies, deals that I actually close on, not hypotheticals and all of that stuff. And so I do that every month. It's $17 if you want to join that. And then I have a mentorship for people that actually want to take it further and say, hey, Clifford, I want to actually work with you, get coaching with you, and help me get started in this. And I do that too.
Did you say the masterclass was $17?
$17.
That's a fantastic deal. And you do that every month, right?
And it's a live 3-day event. It's a live 3-day, not pre-recorded, none of that.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be interactive on it.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so in the episode description, we'll be sure to put a link so that people can sign up for whichever one is coming up. If it's monthly, whatever fits their schedule, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then, could you just to give us, because I think it really helps people kind of in that live batch send, working calls around the table kind of sense. Just give us like, you don't have to name names, but one individual that you've worked with recently, then and kind of the success that they've had since.
Yeah. So I have a couple, Mike and Christina. I have several couples actually. I love working with couples, by the way. I'm married. I've been married for 12 years. I couldn't imagine doing this without my wife. I'm a firm believer that when two or more are gathered, amazing things happen. Like, you can move mountains. But anywho, um, they started with me a year ago, and he was doing it kind of part time. And then he just quit his job cold turkey. Now, I don't recommend that, but he wanted to go all in. And he recently just had him and his wife just had their first $100,000 month. Um, and so, in a closed assignment fees. And so it's just an amazing feeling. I have another member that was on our call probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago and said, Clifford, I literally just made my yearly income in one deal.
Wow, that was a great deal.
it's just a it's just an amazing feeling when people can start to see that this is extremely possible. And again, you can take it as far as you want to take it, or as small as you have. Like, I have a member she works with the veterans and she loves her job, loves it, loves it, loves it. She has no desire to quit, but she just buys rentals, a couple rentals a year. Like she is head over heels. That she's building for her retirement that way. And I love it. So real estate can be whatever anybody wants it to be for them.
I think that's a really great point because I opened the show with generational wealth. You brought up you used the phrase generational wealth at some point, and
Mhm.
that's not everyone's goal, right?
No,
It you can get there if you want, but there's the safety money version of this and the better, more freedom of time version of this and just a happier version of this that doesn't have to equal wealth. I asked somebody recently, I said, like, how many deals would you need to do on a monthly or annual basis in order to, really, at least financially speaking, be successful? He said, you don't even have to do double digits to have everything that you want.
yeah, and
You
it's
know,
it's so subjective. Like it's so subjective, right? Like somebody that has a very very high living expense, right? I'm a country boy. I live a modest life. Like there's no Ferraris in the driveway. Like don't get me wrong, they're beautiful cars. They are. I love them, but I can't haul no cattle with that.
I'd
Right?
love to see you try.
So, but I live a very simple, modest life, and so yeah, my average deal or however many deals I need to maintain my lifestyle and then some, it's going to be completely different from somebody that has 12 Bugattis and a Rolls Royce. So it's varies, but that's what this is so beautiful. That's why I love real estate. I love it. I love it for that reason because at any point I can gear down and say, you know what? Let's put 12 Bugattis in the driveway. Like, let's crank it up. Let's turn it up at any point and then really start trying to hammer that out.
Yeah, again, you're just, dropping the gems here, but for somebody that is on a W-2 kind of position, right? There is no throttle. You've got what you've got. You might be able to
Yeah,
get a promotion, but that's your hand is not on the throttle. Somebody else's is,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And with real estate investment, you've got your hand on the throttle. You can go slow or as fast as you want. Just depends on how much you want to grip it, basically.
Exactly. How crazy you want to ride it, but
All right.
you can go there for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, any kind of last advice you want to drop for people, and we're definitely gonna put your YouTube channel in the description below. You've got your master classes monthly. We'll put a description for that as well. Again, phenomenal deal for what you're offering to people. Anything else that you wanna let people know about before we wrap things up?
Um, I think my biggest thing that I would share with anybody is focus on serving. Just really, really remember that. Like we are building generational wealth by serving other people. And don't focus on the deal hunting, but go in there, add value, and then give yourself grace. I know that social media may have you feel bad if you don't have a Bugatti in 6 months. Like, that's okay. Like, give yourself that grace. You don't have to, right? There's going to be a massive learning curve. Just go through it and enjoy the journey. And don't compare your first deal with somebody else's thousandth deal or hundredth deal, right? Because that person with that Bugatti, I promise you, he's paid his dues, right? And he's put in the work to get there, and you'll get there too. But just don't compare yourself to that, in my opinion, because I fell down that trap, and it sucked the joy out of me. You know what I mean? It made it not fun. But when I said, you know what, I'm going to appreciate my journey and go through this, um, it kind of reignited that joy and gave me passion to keep serving and keep going.
Very well said. Love that. All right. Well, I'm going to give you advance warning. I'm probably going to call you to get back on the show and
Let's do
give
it.
people more inspiration and wisdom. But for now, I'm going to let you go. Really, really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
No, I love it, brother. I appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you.